Hello my friends, frenemies, I am Xeno once again. I'm not alone, I'm here by myself, and today I have a brand new video for you guys. So I'm going to be going over the Xeno timeline. I'm going to try to explain it as best as I possibly can, going through all the story. I might skip out on some things, but those things are probably not going to be important. I don't think they will, but yeah, so I'm going to be going over the timeline and explaining how they cross and how they don't cross between each other and things like that. So anyway, we start off with this timeline, the good timeline, the good universe basically, when in this universe that good is always superior than evil. That's what the good means. So anyway, in this timeline, Mikiko gets Kusini / Fox Girl as her nickname, gets Kusini to give her blood from her, and that makes Mikiko half fox. With that, Mikiko becomes half fox, and Kusini wants Mikiko to find his house. Mikiko's house is destroyed, and then Mikiko and Kusini Kusini ends up then asking Mikiko to find an airplane. So they are trying to get to the other world. The game Xeno Warriors, the original game, was very it was rushed in the sense of what's happening, so that's why this one's going to be a lot easier to explain. So yeah, in Xeno Warriors, Kusini's like, alright, we need to get to airplane. So then they get to the airplane, and there's a guy named Akiyama. Akiyama starts fighting Mikiko, and of course, during that fight, Mikiko's losing against Akiyama. Akiyama has white hair in this timeline. Here's an example of what Akiyama looks like, but of course with white hair. He does look different in each timeline, but that's not the point. So he ends up fighting Akiyama and he's losing. Then from outer space, Ralix comes down, flying through. Here's an example of what Ralix looks like, where my mouse is, purple guy. So yeah, Ralix falls down, and Ralix ends up helping Mikiko. The reason why Akiyama is on the airplane to begin with is because Duo, his boss, told him to find the Xeno Warriors, which are these basically demigods that a god named Xeno, he basically gave out his blood to 7 different individuals. And Mikiko was one of them, of course, and so was Ralix. So that's why the series is also called Xeno Warriors, because Duo is looking for the Xeno Warriors to defeat them, or whatever. So, basically, when Ralix lands, Ralix and Mikiko fight. They have no idea about the Xeno Warriors, they have no idea what they are, and stuff like that. So anyway, they fight Akiyama, and of course still end up losing. But then the airplane arrives to the other world, which Kusini, of course, was trying to tell them to get to get Mikiko stronger. It wasn't explained in the game, but the reason why Kusini wanted Mikiko to go there was to get Mikiko to face off with the Fox King, so he can become the new Fox King and hopefully be able to stop Duo. Because the whole premise of this was for them to stop Duo. Kusini didn't know about Ralix and stuff like that, but she wanted to help Mikiko to defeat Duo, and luckily ended up finding Ralix on the way. So then they make it to the other world. Once they're in the other world, Ralix, Akiyama, and Mikiko decide to, of course, team up to, defeat it. There's another side character that is in the game that is pretty relevant to the story, but I scrapped them out. So Paris is another character that joins as well. Paris is just doesn't have any big impact onto the story as a character, so that's why I'm only bringing up the main characters that transfer through timelines, as of like still being in being in the main fights, the main effects and things. Paris is mostly like the healer of the group. Of course, the game being an RPG, she heals and things like that to help out. And also, there was someone named Zero that got them the plane to begin with. Sorry that I'm skipping things and then adding them in. Hopefully you guys can come up with the connections with that. So yeah. So basically then they go to the other world. Everyone gets split up. And Makiko then is looking around trying to find things. Ralex is looking for, since he's from another planet called Planet Miku, he's looking for Miku, who is a princess of that planet, because they have a lot of backstory or whatever. So Ralex ends up finding Miku, blah blah blah. Makiko ends up finding them. They end up getting split again, I believe, and Makiko fights the Fox King, and Makiko wins against the Fox King. Once Makiko beats the Fox King, of course he's the new Fox King, blah blah blah, and then everyone meets up again. So basically in the other world it's a split, and everyone's doing the things that they have to do or were planning on doing once they got there. So after that, Duo appears and of course tries to fight them. They lose drastically, and Duo gives them basically 3 years to train. And that's what Kid says, is that Duo's plan is going to obviously conquer the whole world and stuff like that, and you know, spread it out with demons and things. So Makiko and everyone else was like, okay, so we need to talk to Kid. Kid is the guy that told Kusani in the first place to give to use Makiko to help out. Kid knows everything as far as like further beyond this timeline and things like that. So Kid knows everything, and Kid has the ability to also transfer people through timelines and know when someone's from a different timeline. However, he does not do that in this timeline. So what happens is that Kid tells them you have 3 years to actually fight Duo. So then there's a 3-year time skip or whatever. So then the 3-year time skip happens. Once the 3-year time skip happens, they know that it's time to fight. So Makiko and them, you know, they train, they do a couple of side stuff or whatever. Makiko goes into the Hedeku Blade in order to like talk to the old Fox King, because of course Makiko's blade is the thing that absorbs enemies or whatever and traps them in there, but the Fox King stayed in there for a longer time because of him being more of a special soul than everything else that Makiko put in there, which he only put in demons, which demons don't have souls, so when they're in there they're just sealed for their bodies, and their bodies have nothing and no control of their abilities, which is why they never are able to break out of the Hedeku Blade or do anything to it, which is already impossible to really get out of the Hedeku Blade unless the user takes you out of it. So then Makiko with you know, talks to the Fox King, blah blah blah, learns how to use his transformation, his Fox King mode, to like the limit, basically being able to tap into the full power and all that stuff. So then afterwards Makiko goes in and fights. He ends up fighting Duo. They get the whole squad, of course. Kid's sister appears because Kid's sister is also helpful. She appears and helps them out as well and things like that. So anyway, they defeat Duo. There's a lot of other stuff with Alex and all these other stuff, Project XL, but that's not something I'm going to explain throughout this entire video. I mainly just want to get through each timeline and explain it all as best as I can. So then, as soon as Kid realizes that they defeat Duo, all this other stuff, then it's a time of peace. However, Kid does still teach this Makiko alpha form, which is a transformation that Makiko gets or whatever, but Makiko doesn't get to use it to any great ability, being the fact that he doesn't need it anymore. So then after that, a 6-year time skip happens. And that is when it goes to the time of happiness. This is when Makiko and everyone is fine, everything's cool, and things like that. There's no issues, they don't have to worry about anything. And then gets into the black hole, which every timeline connects to this, and then goes into Xeno Warriors Reincarnate. So then we can go into the next timeline. So a lot of you already know the Lost Saga. We did a giant roleplay on Xeno Warriors, and this one is of course the recap of it, the retold story, because the other Lost Saga one, the original Lost Saga story, was the same as this Xeno Warriors. So those are basically the exact same story and same thing. This one of course has Master Yo and everything like that. This is the new made story or whatever. The latest Xeno Warriors story or whatever. So anyway, that's where this is in Lost Saga. So Xeno Warriors is owned by Xeno Games, but we do not own Lost Saga at all. We don't use Lost Saga for anything other than telling the story and portraying our characters. That's the only use that we use it for, and that's what we own, is the story, not the game. I want to keep that in mind for everyone and stuff like that. So then, the roleplay series, Makiko meets Master Yo after getting blood by Kusini, meets Master Yo and realizes that Kusini kills people, and Makiko's like, I don't want to kill people. I recommend just to watch it. It was not finished, the complete story and all that stuff. It was not finished, but it's fine. So anyway, in Lost Saga, Makiko ends up meeting Deku, and Deku tells him that there's this cool fighting school, which everything of this is how I originally wanted the story in Xeno Warriors, but that didn't even happen. So, there's this fighting school, they take on missions and things like that. So, Makiko hangs out with Deku and stuff and starts just doing missions. But then Akiyama appears way earlier than he normally does. So he appears at the end of the season, at the end of the first season, I believe, and he kills Deku. Once he kills Deku, Makiko gets upset, he's screaming, he's mad at him, and things like that. And then after that, time passes. So then Makiko looks for an airplane, because Kusini says it's about time that we go find an airplane and stuff, because Kusini still wants to find the airplane and things like that. So they find the airplane. They found just a random scrap one. There is no person there or whatever, and Master Yo knows how to pilot it or whatever, but instead of piloting, he just puts it on auto, so Master Yo isn't actually there. So basically, finds the airplane, and as soon as they find the airplane, Ralix lands down. Now, if you wanted to try to connect these timelines between like how time works between them, you can, but I don't recommend to do that unless you really feel like it. But yeah, basically Ralix lands. If you want to connect these timelines going through, then Ralix lands at the same time Makiko is fighting Akiyama, but we're not trying to do all that to make it more complicated, because that's honestly unnecessary to know. So anyway, Ralix lands, Makiko meets Ralix, and they they end up being friends instantly. There's no Akiyama or whatever, because Akiyama Duo hasn't told Akiyama to defeat the Xeno Warriors yet. So then afterwards they go back to the mountain village. Once they go back to the mountain village, that's when Xeno Warriors Blazing Wind starts. Now at the beginning of this, Makiko has a dream. Of course now Ralix is in the mountain village as well. They all live there or whatever. There's also Kokoro, who lives there as well. She wasn't in, well, she was kind of in a little bit of Lost Saga roleplay story, but anyway, she was just someone else in the village that Makiko talked to here and there or whatever. So, and of course she likes Makiko or whatever. So then, and she's a part of the Xeno Warriors Blazing Wind story near the middle and end, but at the beginning she's an optional character to add to your team. So basically, Makiko he ends up having this dream that Duo's burning down the village everything's going downhill. Like, he has this vision basically, and he knows that he has to stop Duo. So he wakes up and walks out of his door. Now, if you haven't seen it, this is a manga animation thing, not animation, but a voice thing that I did on my channel that had this happen with Mikiko walking out and things like that, and basically realizing that he needs to fight Duo. So as soon as he gets out of his door, Mikiko then is acquainted with seeing like Kusini, and talks to Kusini. Of course, Mikiko remembers how to use Karma, or use Karma Blast. It's just a RPG game skill that, like, Mikiko already knows how to use it in the story wise, but in the game wise, it's just like that. So anyway, then Mikiko finds Ralix. There's a lot of other side quests and things like that, but none of those matter. Finds Ralix, and of course Kusini said that he already went to the airplane early, because now they're planning on going to the place. So, finds Ralix, goes into the airplane, and Akiyama's there. So then the same fight happens, they team up with Akiyama afterwards, and they go down to the other world. So right now, it's the only Mikiko, red hair guy right here, Ralix, purple, I don't know why I almost said blue, Kokoro, pink, and Aki with green. They're falling down to the other world. It's literally them only, so they go down to the other world. Kusini didn't join them to the airplane or any of that. She's not there to help them at all. So yeah, falls down to the other world, and then in the other world, they fight a lot of demons like always, blah blah blah, nothing big. Ralix finds Miku, Mikiko becomes Fox King just like in the other timeline, and then once Mikiko then becomes Fox King and decides to take on Duo, because of course with his new power he's like, wow, I can do this. He goes to Duo first, he rushes in and loses, and Akiyama also is already there and betrays them. At least looks like he betrays them, but of course he knows that they're not strong enough, so he'll just team up with the Xeno Warriors later. So they end up fighting, blah blah blah, and Mikiko loses, and then Ralix, Miku, and Kokoro end up there, and they sneak their way there, and Ralix ends up realizing that they're not strong enough for Duo nor Akiyama, and they get taken down. So then after that, Duo decides to send them back to Earth. As soon as Duo sends them back to Earth, he has a talk to Mikiko, hinting the fact that he is the reincarnation of Xeno, which makes him very strong or have abilities that he just doesn't know how to use. So then tells him that stuff, all that good stuff, and then Mikiko is basically realizing, oh, so I'm actually a lot stronger than I think, blah blah blah. And then once they are back at Earth, they of course are planning to go back and defeat, Duo and stuff like that. But instead of that happening, of them just defeating Duo and going back, there of course is time that passes before that, and there's a little bit more that happens in the game. After that, they go to Kingdom of Aurora, which is a completely other game, but don't worry about that. But yeah, so afterwards, they after all that good stuff, they meet Kid, and Kid's like, alright, we need to train you guys, and that's when Kid sends them into the Xeno Warriors timeline. Now, this does happen instead of in the game. If you play Xeno Warriors, you won't see them in the game, of course, but this does happen. So if there's ever a time when I re-show this timeline or whatever, then that's when Mikiko appears. or whatever. That's when they will appear there and they help out or whatever. So then it's just a big team of old timeline Makiko, all the other stuff, and they're fighting or whatever. So of course, this happening made it very difficult for this Makiko and that Makiko to actually, realize that they both need to possibly, as a last resort, team up to defeat Duo, because Duo is a lot stronger in this timeline than the other one. So, and also because they have more people or whatever to help out. Because in the good timeline, they had a bigger team. They had literally an army to basically to fight Duo, and in this one, it wasn't as many people. So anyway, they go in that timeline to help them out and train or whatever. Of course, they're not doing anything that changes their timeline, but they're in the same correlation of time. So, or their time is catching up with theirs over time. So as soon as the Xeno Warriors timeline catches up with the Blazing Wind timeline, when they're going through there, that's when the Xeno Warriors timeline is able to see the Blazing Wind timeline, and they're both in the same place at the same time. So as soon as that happens, Kid realizes it and kicks him out. So I'm gonna try to explain what I just did a little bit better. So basically, in Blazing Wind, they go into the Xeno Warriors timeline at the beginning, the very beginning. And as soon as that timeline makes it to where they are, when they're trying to get ready for Duo, that's when they both connect. So when they both connect, that's when the Xeno Warriors timeline is able to see them. As soon as the Xeno Warriors timeline can see the Xeno Warriors Blazing Wind, Duo kicks them out. Of course, when they're in that timeline, they talk to the other duo, not the other duo, they talk to the other kid, because the other kid knows about the kid in that timeline doing that. They talk to that kid and stuff like that, and things like that happen. And also they have a cool talk about their timelines and why Aki looks different and why they all look different now than they did there. So then they exit that and they don't go back to that timeline. They were going to, but it doesn't end up happening. They don't end up going back to that timeline afterwards. So after that training, they obviously think that they need more training, and they have their time skip, which also was 3 years. So when they have their time skip, basically their time skip happens and they look different. I don't have the chart thing for them, but basically it's all in the game, and that's the whole premise of this. So they have their time skip and they're like, alright, we're ready for Duo. Of course, then this takes it took a longer time, but then they meet Okamix, which of course Okamix helps them out as well. Okamix comes in a lot earlier in this Xeno Warriors, but Okamix comes in at the end before the time skip happens. So Okamix comes in because Kid finds him and takes him in, and then they train for 3 years. So that's when the time skip happens. So yeah, they train for 3 years, and then now they know they have to defeat Duo. Blah blah blah, all this other stuff. They defeat Duo, or they think that they defeat Duo. So they basically fight Duo and think that they defeat him, and then after basically defeating him, because Project XL is it's a movie, but it doesn't happen in Xeno Warriors Blazing Wind. So basically in this timeline, you could say they defeat Duo. They defeat Duo, and then more happens with Ralix's past that correlates to now, and now there's a protagonist that was Ralix's old rival that wants to fight him. So then they end up going out to the they end up saying, okay, Ralix, we need to fight this guy, blah blah blah. A tournament was supposed to happen, but doesn't end up happening, which was going to happen in the original story. It was a god tournament, but didn't end up happening, mainly because Dragon Ball Super's ripping me off. I'm just kidding, but yeah, I mean, they kind of are. But anyway, yeah, so a god tournament was going to happen, doesn't end up happening, and instead, when Ralix's rival appears, and more was supposed to happen, instead, the whole village and everything and every place is destroyed. And this happens when Makiko is in the, after defeating Duo, Makiko's in the new, or the old other world, of course, because that's where they defeat Duo in the other world. Now it's called the old other world. And after that, after defeating Duo and putting them in the Hedeku blade, Makiko then goes into this airplane or whatever and realizes that Ralix is there, and Ralix is fighting people, and basically they're these fox gods that he's fighting, and Makiko helps out, and then afterwards, once the afterwards something happens, Makiko uses Alpha form, which he also learned in the old other world by a kid. He uses Alpha form, and he actually gets to use it to its potential here, and he fights Ralix's enemy. I forgot his name. Ralix's rival. Fights him, ends up losing, but still manages to get out alive. So then Makiko realizes that there's something going on, and the old otherworld, or there's a new otherworld. It looks like to Makiko that there's a new otherworld being formed at the mountain village, because now it's being conquered over by demons because of Ralix's old rival. So Makiko thinks that the other world's somehow coming back, or that Duo is still alive, but Duo is not actually alive anymore. So then Makiko goes there, the whole place is on fire, and it's just like his dream at the beginning of the game when he saw Duo and things like that. So now after that, Makiko has to open this gate by getting certain things. He talks to Kid, and Kid's like, everyone's basically dying out here. Like we can't have everyone survive. We're still trying to fight. So Makiko grabs up the team. He gets everyone and talks to Kid, and Kid takes him to he takes him into a weird. He takes him in between the timelines for like a certain amount of time, as long as Kid can hold it. So Makiko's in between all the timelines, and because of this, that makes it so Makiko also is a part of this timeline for a certain amount of time, which of course that's when the black hole starts. So we're basically in the middle here, right now, as far as what's going on. So then Makiko goes in between both of the timelines at the same time, and that's when he gets the people from the Xeno Warriors timeline to help him out, and he gets the old timeline Makiko. He gets basically his alternate, his other self, and their other selves from this timeline here. So then there are two Mikus, two Makikos, two Ralixes, two Akiyamas, so on and so forth. So he has a big team now. Now he's sure that he can win. And of course, doing this at the end, around the well, I'll say it later. So then they end up fighting Duo. So they go through a lot, or not Duo. I keep thinking of Duo. They end up fighting the black hole. The black hole is here, and they end up dying because they weren't strong enough. But before the death happens, Kid makes sure to use his abilities of a black hole to give Makiko, Ralix, and everyone that he can, to send them through the black hole. And of course, that's when their souls, they die, like their bodies and everything die, but their souls go past, and their souls enter the reincarnate, and that's where their souls go to. So their bodies are gone, but their souls go to reincarnate, and that was the point of what Kid wanted to do, because he's the only one that knows everything that's really going on. So he has Kid has that happen. He sends their souls through here, and then they go into their reincarnate, which combines with all the other Makikos and all the other characters. So then that happens, death, then they die, but of course Kid sends the original timelines back together. He tries his best to bring them back together. So then, and that's why there's still a 6-year time skip here, because then when the 6-year time skip happens, the Makiko here and all the other characters know that that they had a fight and that there was a black hole happening. So once that happens, they have 6 years that pass, and they have a time of happiness. But then they realize that the black hole's happening, and it happened at a different time for them, even though they were there when it was happening before. So basically, once Kid sent them back, they went back here in the middle of their 6-year time skip, and then time keeps passing on, and they have their time of true happiness, and then the black hole ends up in their timeline. So it took 6 years for the black hole to get into their timeline, is basically what I'm trying to say. I know I'm wording this like horribly probably, but yeah, it took 6 years for the black hole to get into their timeline. So in Xeno Warriors Blazing Wind, basically they all died. Now then we got this timeline, of course, which is all a mystery. It's the unknown timeline, and in this unknown timeline, that's the one that they tried to connect to, or Kid tried to connect to, and that was the cause of the black hole. Now, keep in mind there already was a lot of demons there and things like that, and the main reason why the black hole's also happening is because Kid tried to make a path to the other timeline, which is also creating diversions through time, because there are only 3 timelines that existed. So that happens, and the black hole just keeps, getting stronger through time, because the black hole is just an infinite source of energy. There are characters in this timeline, but they are not, I'm not saying who they are yet. So yeah, so then black hole appears and kills them, and the black hole goes through goes to this timeline as well after 6 years, and then they end up in the reincarnate universe, and this is what the new world looks like, of course, after the black hole's done. And then we get Xeno Warriors Reincarnate. This is the new character, Kurita. This is Makiko, and this is Ralix. Now, of course, the anime, or the manga, is gonna come out of this, but it hasn't come out yet, so that's when the story continues. So yeah, that's basically the end of all of that, and Reincarnate is basically all the timelines combined. So this Makiko is as strong as the Makiko that might have been in this timeline, the unknown. He's as strong as plus as strong as the bad timeline, plus as strong as the good timeline. So since all those timelines combined it, Makiko is as strong as that. All the humans, all the people that lived before or whatever, also reincarnated. Duo's reincarnated. Everyone's back basically, and now they're trying to figure out if the people that are back are good people or bad people and stuff like that. So anyway, yeah, that happens. There's of course other things about Makiko in both timelines, like he was a part of the Orninji clan, blah blah blah, other things that just added up to his power. But basically, for Reincarnated, he still has his Fox King powers, and he's still a part of the Orninji clan. And yeah, so anyway, hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. I know it was long, and hopefully it helped you understand the timelines and things like that. And hopefully now you guys can kind of get a idea of what Reincarnate is. And if you did watch this whole video, be sure to leave a like and comment saying that I watched the whole thing. If it seemed complicated, that's fine, because Reincarnate is the whole point of not making it complicated as far as how the story will continue onwards. But yeah, so basically the two main timelines that have stories, they're basically the same, just different things happen, and one was destined to be death and them to die. But yeah, that's basically the sum of it. And hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. See you on the flip side.